Erev Tov Tiberius. Good morning in Palo Alto, where even if you're on daylight savings time, we know it's sort of still good morning. Our very first person to say hello was from Northern California, so I'll say hello to Gail. My name's Wayne Firestone, and I get excited when I get to share a little piece, a little bissel of Israel with you in a way that only going on one of these virtual tours can compensate you for not actually being there. We do have some folks that have already checked in from Yerushalayim and from other parts of Israel. We are, as always, a global audience. I see people from San Diego and Long Island and from Evans, Georgia. I'm not sure I've had Evans, Georgia check in before, so welcome. We are happy to have people here from Rockville and from really around the world. White Plains, New York, I just saw. So thanks for joining us today. We have a very special treat for you indeed. Keep it coming, keep it coming. We love to know all the different people around the world and around the United States and around Israel that are with us. But I've got a specific question for you today before we start off with Shahar. Now, and I think it'll become increasingly clear why I'm asking. What I'd like you to put into the chat is, for those of you here with us live today, is how many alphabets of a language are you familiar with? Okay, I mean, it could be your native tongue is one, or maybe you have more exposure to other languages, but I'm sort of curious. If you want to list them, you can, but you know, if it's just to start us out on this little survey monkey, shall we call it, a very imperfect, unscientific, I see 6, I see 3. How many alphabets of different languages do you know? I see a lot of people with 3, I see 4, I see 5 from Schuyler, 5 from Ruti, Dr. Weinstein 5, Harriet 3. We have a little surprise for you today. We may be able to add to the number that you already know. But for that, I'm going to have to turn over to my friend and colleague Shahar Fertig, our master guide, who comes up with exciting places for us to visit in present-day Israel. But he takes us way, 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 way back to show us really the whole landscape. He builds a tell for us, as it were, virtually, so that we could look at the different layers of what's happened in some of the beautiful places of Eretz Israel. Shahar, good to be back with you today. Tell us a little bit about Tel Dor and where we're going on our virtual tour today.
Thank you, Wayne. So Dor is located about 8 or 9 miles north of Caesarea and about 20 miles south of Haifa. As I like always, we will start with more of the physical and biological aspects of the site, and we will go into a history and biblical history. Dor was a Phoenician city. Some 3,000 years ago it was established, and even have an Egyptian layer. And it was a main port of Israel. Today, when you go there, it's one of the most natural places of Israel. It's a nature reserve, an archaeological site. And you cannot imagine that this was a center of a life of a big city thousands of years ago. Shall we start?
Absolutely.
All right.
I know you have a lot to cover today.
Yes, so I will share my screen. And on a personal level, this place, this part of the shores of Israel is probably my favorite part of Israel. As I like nature and I like the sea, this is the best place to combine the two in the perfect tranquility. Some years ago, maybe 20 years ago, we could camp there and stay there overnight. But today, as it is nature reserved, we cannot. Unfortunately, we cannot camp there anymore. But more time for the animals to hang up at night and celebrate their life without human beings. so, which is really needed. So you can see here, I chose this first picture that tells a little bit of the story of this archaeological site and a natural site, and its history that you can see here, the hippos, the Phoenician type of ship that used to roam the Mediterranean Sea 25 and 100 and 3,000 years ago. And let's begin. So here I took a little video for you some days ago. I went for a walk with my family, and here you can see on the horizon of this view, you can see Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is not a dramatic mountain. The peaks of it are about 2,000 feet, more or less, and you can see that the slopes are quite easy and then not too steep. And here you can see the coastline of Nahsholim. On the edge of the mountain here on the left, on the northwestern edge of it, you can see the city of Haifa in the distance. You can see some houses, and you can see how the shore is made of a bay after bay after bay, making it a beautiful place to bathe. You can even see the people here sitting peacefully and almost alone on the beach. But not only bathing, this formation made it perfect place for shipbuilding, because you can hide your ships in your boats from the sea, from the waves of the sea. And let's have a look into this sea. You can see this little island. We will talk about this island also, and you can see by the island, you can see those plates that are in the sea, and also here next to the shore, you can see some plates in the place where the waves are washing the soil. And here in the distance, toward the setting sun, you can see a rig. Jumped to the beginning. You can see a rig. And this rig is pumping out of the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea natural gas that was discovered some 30 years ago, and now in the last decade they started pumping it and using it to make electricity in European countries, and this of course brought a big debate whether it's good for Israel or bad for Israel. If we and also on the economic aspect, do we gain enough? Did our government did the right deal for us? And will any pollution of this rig will arrive to the shores or not? And most experts saying no, but are afraid of some, those natural disasters. So we nature lovers, we look at this rig and we hope that it will function well until the end of its days. But let's go back to Dor. And here on this map on green, you can see the Phoenician territory as it was some 2,800 years ago, around the before Common Era, before Christ. And you can see the city Dor is on the bottom of the map, next to Acre or Akko, and the border of today's, and you can see Damascus here, and Tyre, or in Hebrew as we call it Tzor, and Sidon, Sidon in Hebrew, and the border between Israel and Lebanon passes today right here. It's a short border, up to here. So Akko and Dor are the southmost part of this little kingdom of the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were a Canaanite nation. So when the Bible tells us about the Canaanites that had 7 nations, The Phoenicians are one of them. The Phoenicians did not call themselves Phoenicians, but they preferred calling themselves after the city they are originated in. So if you are from Tyre, then you will be the man of Tyre. Of Dor, you will be the woman of Dor. So they did not call themselves Phoenicians. And here we can see the first kingdom of them, or alliance of cities. But here we can see a different map with a broader route traveling that the Phoenicians spread along the Mediterranean Sea on the north of the African coast. In this period, in this time of human history, people did not go with their ships into sea as least as possible. Sometimes they did, but if they could reach this destination without being away from the shore, then they would do it. So you can see the red lines most of the time are going from shore to shore. You can see this ancient nation of the Phoenicians reached all the way to the Gibraltar Straits in the west and even went out to the Atlantic Ocean. So certainly one of the Canaanite nations that certainly became an empire on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. Phoenicians left us also a huge legacy. It is believed that the Phoenician alphabet is a parent of most of the alphabets that we know in the Western world, from the Old Hebrew, the Ancient Hebrew, the Aramaic, the Greek, the Latin, and the English, all originate in a long way of transformation from these ancient symbols into today's letters. So, for example, if we look at the Aleph, which is the Hebrew for A, you can see here on top symbol. What would you guess this symbol stands for? I guess.
It looks like Shahar, looks like you froze there for a minute, and I know we have a little bit of static coming today on your audio that we're hearing, but we'll forge on and hopefully be able to work it out. So you're trying to, if I understand you're asking us if we understand what that olive symbol might represent. I don't know.
Yes. What do you think? If the connection is bad, then let me know. I'll try to switch. What stands for an ox. This is the house, and ox in aluf. Today, if you ask Hebrew speakers what is aluf, they will tell you aluf is a champion. But in ancient days, aluf was an ox, and you can see how this figure turns around to this shape, and later becomes this shape. And from the ancient ox, now we have aluf, and the letter is called aleph. So when you say alphabet, it is the alpha comes from aluf, which is the ox. How interesting it is. And
well, you taught us our first letter in Phoenician and our first word at the same time. So I don't know if people can necessarily claim that they now speak the Phoenician alphabet, but at least they have your chart if they do a screen share here, or they Google it to see the connection and how it led to the Hebrew letter Aleph. That's beautiful, Shahar. Thank you.
Yeah, and the beauty of it goes on. You can see this fish, the symbol of fish. In Hebrew, we say dag. It begins with da or di, daled. This is the letter. And you can see how the symbol goes from the dag, from the fish, into the Latin di, and to the Hebrew di, daled. This symbol is water. This is the water. Look how the water transformed through the Phoenicians into mime, the M for mime. And so when you look at the letter M, when you write English, you look at M, what you have to see is mime, water. And maybe last one, we will take the Ein, the I. So this is an I, and you can see it transforms to this symbol of O. So when you draw an O in your notebook, remember that this is in Hebrew, this is Ein, the I. So this is how Phoenician script is is giving birth to the next generations. And here we are back to the view of this beautiful coastline. Now you can see something fascinating. The mountain of Carmel that are there in the horizon, maybe a little bit back to the physical part of it. Oh, sorry, my mouse is making funny things today. We are going back from the conceptual to the physical, and you can see in the horizon the Mount Carmel, which is a mountain of limestone. But below it and closer to our view from Tel Dor, from the top of Tel Dor, you can see the sandy beach, and then you can see some rocks. And these rocks are not just any rock. These rocks are a rare formation of rocks in the world. There is another site with similar rocks in Turkey. And this rock in the scientific language has the name Kurkar, which is a Hebrew word. And it refers to ancient sand dunes, but not that old, maybe some hundreds of thousands of years. Sand dunes that become petrified with the salt of the sea and the calcium from the rivers. The sea was a bit lower and far away, and these sand dunes become petrified. And today, when we look at them, we can see the little grains of sand and the little formations, which are very unique. And only if you come to Israel, you can see it. When you go to Acre, or to the old city of Jaffa, or to Caesarea, you can see that the aqueduct of Caesarea and the cities of Acre and Jaffa are made of this rock because they are built on this rock. So here, it's a soft rock, it is easy to cut, and you can see the beautiful formations and the holes in it that they were done by ancient trees that grew into the sand. So here is a little bit of a view around this rock. And the sea digs in, the waves, the salt, the wind is always digging in these rocks. It's a bit dangerous to be on cliffs. If you see cliffs of this material, it's a bit dangerous to stay underneath them. And you can see here in a close-up picture the little grains of sand. And sometimes in the winter with big rains, we have rocks may fall from the cliffs, so it's dangerous to be there in the winter days. And here you can see how the waves are digging into the rock, going in. And you can see the man walking here on a very interesting plate. It's very flat. It's on the level of water where the waves can wash it back and forth. And the water comes in. And this sophisticated terrain is a home for many interesting animals. Most of them small, like crabs, some fish that like to be there. In the past, seals. This was a place that the seals like to breed and reproduce when they can have a shelter between the rocks. Here's my friend Daphne, another tour guide, and on top, Abigail, my wife, and my little daughter Geffen, that are walking down the path between the ruins. There are some paths that are easy that you can take a wheelchair and walk it or roll on it, and some paths are more difficult, as you can see here. And here we sit.
Well, we were going well there for a while. We got the audio back. Now it looks like we lost Shahar for a moment, but have faith. Our wizards working behind the scene will try to connect him back up. I've been to that spot before in Israel, and every time you look at the Mediterranean, it just brings a lot of warmth. I know it's cold in lots of places in the US right now, and in other parts of the world. Shahar, do we have you back now? Or
Yes, I'm back. Hi. So
okay.
I'm not sure where did you lose me? Did you see my daughter?
I don't think we saw your daughter. I think
here she is.
Okay. There we go.
So I was talking to myself a little bit, but here is Abigail and Geffen, my daughter. They walk down a difficult path. The same site has also a path that you can take a wheelchair on, which is very accessible. And some parts are more difficult, like this one. And here, these are the rocks of the city that are buried there. But and on this place, on this side, you can see here on the left, this beautiful sculpture of the iron sculpture of the ship that we began with. And you can see this little dent in the rock, and you can clearly see that somebody cut it over here, and also over here. And also, maybe not on this angle, but it's difficult to see, but here you can see that this is man-made. And what you are looking at is not other but a shipyard. So this is where the Phoenicians built in their city. They had a little shipyard to build ships, and from here they could push it into the sea. And here you can see the glitzimeris, which are a type, in Hebrew we call it na'amit. It's a type of a shell. And the meaning of glitzimeris is the sweet and sour shell. I don't know if it disappeared because of excessive eating, because it was very tasty, or because of ecological process. That this is another assumption. But this type of shells, this type of clams disappeared or stopped living about 200 years ago. And until today, we can see plenty of them on the shores of Dor and Nahsholim, but we can't see them alive anymore. This is another type of animal that lives between the rocks in the sea. And this is a barnacle. The barnacle is a type of an arthropod that is it looks maybe like a shell, but it's closer to the crustacea and to the crabs. It doesn't go away, but it can open up to drink and to sift the seawater for food, for nutrition. And in Hebrew, we call it balutei yam, which is literally means, balut is acorn. So these are sea acorns. And when we look at these platforms on the level of the water, these platforms are biogenic rocks that were formed by these creatures and by these creatures. So many of these live and attached to the rocks, and with the eons of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, they form platforms of rock, of very solid rock. Sometimes you can even use it for construction. Of course, it's a nature value and nobody do it anymore. But it's a very solid rock that is all made of animal shells, clams, and this type of barnacles. And this is called a biogenic rock. the barnacle are so flexible that they can even live on the back of turtles. This turtle is unfortunately was captured. This picture was captured as he is dead, because you will never see a sea turtle. It's a very big animal, and you will never see a sea turtle climbing on rocks, for sure not wet rocks or tall rocks. This turtle found itself on the rock because it died and the waves threw it there. And if you want to see the turtles, you'll have to wait to the summer nights when it's not allowed to be on the beach. And back then, in this time, the sea turtles are coming out on the sand. The females are digging a nest into the sand and laying eggs, dozens of eggs into the hole. And she covers it and she goes away to the beach, into the sea, and the sun will warm the eggs until they hatch. So here you can see the barnacles on the back of the turtle, and later we will go back to the turtles and finish their story. So back to the video that we saw earlier with the shipyard. This is an illustration of how this shipyard looked like, and you can see again this ship that is called the Hippos, as it had the head of a horse and a tail of a fish. And we just saw the place where the ships were built and pushed into the sea. And here it is from another angle. So you can see this dent, one here and one here. And these are the two places to build ship. This is an engraving that is, you can see it in the National Museum of Beirut. Many of these engravings are found as different kinds, but that depict the same kind of ship, the Hippos. You can see it in different places, so you can see how detailed is our description of a ship, which is more than 2,500 years old. You can see the ropes, you can see the sail, and you can see also the head. Sometimes it's more clear that it's a horse head, sometimes it's less, but this type of ship still is called Hippos. Hippos for the horse. Look at the beauty of the waves on the bottom. And these ships sailed all the Mediterranean Sea, and especially in the north of Africa. And this is another style of a Phoenician ship. So we said that the Phoenicians liked to be named after their own city in their own language, but the Greeks called them Phoenicians after the purple color that they manufactured and traded. In the Hebrew Bible calls them Sidonim, Sidonians, after one of their cities, Sidon. In Greek, when etymologists they try to understand exactly what is the Phoenician is coming from, so phoinos is blood red, and phoenix is date palm, which is also sometimes reddish. But the Tyrian purple was that the Sidonians and the Phoenicians were trading all along the Mediterranean Sea, and especially being sold to the Greek and to the Roman. They made the color purple. It's called Tyrian purple after Tyre also, and in Hebrew we call it argaman. So these were made from shells of these snails, and the way to create it is you have to pick many of these shells and to break them, and to pick a specific gland of each of these snails, and then with a little process it turns to the color of purple or to the color of light blue. As a nature lover, I don't really love this practice, but this is how people did color for thousands of years. And these colors were so expensive, so only kings and emperors could pay for them. And that's why for an entire garment colored with this color, and that's why it became color of royalty. Researchers lately tried to see what colors they can make from each snail. So you can see that the colors 1 and 2 were produced from hemastoma, from this snail. And the number 4 and 5, the bottom ones, this is the light blue, the tchelet, was formed from the middle one, the trunculus. And number 3 was formed from brandaris, this one here on the right. This research was done by Zohar Amar and Naama Sukenik from Israel. And here, some finding of the same Tyrian purple that was found not in Dor, but in the south of Israel, in a place in the desert called Timna. Over there was a production of copper. Maybe you visited this place when you came to Eilat, but in the excavation, they found little pieces of fabric. This is a picture that was taken through a microscope, and you can see in a beautiful way how the fibers are colored with the purple color of the Phoenicians. So they were named after this color. And in the Jewish tradition, this the color of argaman is coming from different directions. It is mentioned 39 times in the Bible. And here you can say part of Numbers 15. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel and bid them that they make them throughout their generations fringes in the corners of their garments, and that they put with the fringe of each corner a thread of blue. In Hebrew, this blue is called tchelet, which is translated to a celestial blue. And these little threads that are in the garment, in the edge of the garment, they are symbolic. And the Torah, in the book of Numbers, God tells us in clear words, why do you put these fringes that in Hebrew we call them tzitzit? And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them, and that you go not about after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you used to go astray. Then you may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy unto your God. You see, Jewish people go with the talith, or you see the tzitzit coming out of the garment. This is a symbol of devotion, of remembering the commandments of God. And the Torah tells us that you should put a blue string inside it, because the blue is precious. It's coming from the same shells of the snails, and therefore you made an effort to make it beautiful and invested in it. It's not just any kind of fabric and not just any kind of fringe, but the tzitzit should be created with a lot of care and love. On the left, we can see a man sitting on a horse, and this is no other but Mordechai HaYehudi. Mordechai HaYehudi is from the story of Esther, and this is coming from a synagogue that is called Dura Europus in the southeast of Syria, one of the most ancient synagogues in the world. It shows how Mordechai is dressed with tchelet. We have this term until today, tchelet Mordechai, the beauty of the celestial blue garments of Mordechai, and as he is dressed by clothes and led by Haman in the streets of Persia. And we are going back to the back to the Phoenicians, another story of the Phoenicians. One of the famous stories are the princess of Dido. She came from a city a little north of Dor, and she came from Tyre or Tsor. Her father died, but he gave his kingdom to her and to Pygmalion, her brother. But Pygmalion took the kingdom and did not let her rule, and later killed her husband that had a lot of power. So Dido had to run away. She said she's going to look for a treasure of her father and left on a boat to North Africa, to the area of Tunisia. Over there, she landed on the ground, and the locals wanted her to go away, and she asked from them, please give me just a little piece of land, just the land that is the size of the leather of one ox. And the people said, okay, you just the leather, the size of a leather of one ox, that's not a big size. And smart Dido, she took the skin of the ox and she cut it into a thin thread. And she took the thread and she made a big circle with the one thread that made of one skin of an ox. With the word that they will give her the land, she got a nice piece of land there. And over there, she established Kart Hadash. Hebrew speakers can actually understand this word. Kart Hadash is the new city. In Greek, they called it Karchadon. And in Latin, they called it Carthago, Carthage. So this is that later became one of the biggest enemies of Rome with the Punic Wars, if anyone of you heard about it. So this is the story of the Phoenician queen and how she reaches the north of Africa and becoming one of the biggest opponents of Rome before becoming an empire, and basically swallowing the Phoenician culture into the Roman Empire. In the excavations of Dor, some treasures were found, and these treasures help us understand how far the Phoenicians went. So if, for example, we saw the map that is showing how the Phoenicians are going all the north of Africa and all the way to the Atlantic Sea, how do we know it exactly? So we have pieces of clay and pottery and art, and we also have the metals. And this treasure of silver, of course, rusty silver, was found in Dor, and it is estimated that it is from the 9th century before Common Era. And the research of the silver that comes to this treasure tells us that it was brought from Iberia, from the area of Spain and Portugal, and they brought silver from there 3,000 years ago, and tin that was used in the bronze industry. In the earlier days, they brought most of the silver from Anatolia and Sardinia, and in later days, they brought the silver from Iberia. Here you can see another treasure of silver, some jewelry also in it, earrings and rings, and just pieces of silver. Another story from biblical story is the story of the prophet Jonah. When Jonah is fleeing to Tarshish, he's going to Jaffa and he's taking a ship. And it says that the ship is going to Tarshish. And actually it says, literally it says that Jonah is going to Tarshish. And we ask, is he going to a city called Tarshish, or is it using a boat that is called Tarshish? And so nobody knows exactly to answer this question, but it is estimated that he took a Phoenician boat. Here you can see a view from Tel Dor of Nahsholim. Nahshol in Hebrew means a big wave. A big wave. This kibbutz was established in 1949, right after the independence of Israel. Behind it, on top of Mount Carmel, here you can see Zichron Yaakov on the right, and Faradis or Fureidis, which is an Arab village. And here you can see the coast of Nahsholim from the top of Tel Dor. And in Nahsholim, you can walk to a historical site, which is this building with the 3 roofs, and this is called the Mizgaga. A Mizgaga was a factory that was established by Baron Benjamin Edmond de Rothschild in order to produce glass. Baron Benjamin Edmond de Rothschild came to support the Jewish settlements back in the 19th century, in 1881, 1882, when the people of Zichron Yaakov, for example, settled on Mount Carmel. In their first year was a horrible year, and they discovered that they do not know how to work the land. They can't grow anything on it because they don't know how, because they came from Romania, and they don't know the climate, and they don't know the diseases, and especially the malaria. The Baron Rothschild saved their life, basically, giving them all they needed, and also brought many experts in order to improve their life and create an income for them. So when you visit Nahsholim, you can see this factory, Hamizgaga, that was established by him in order to produce the bottles of glass that will serve for the wine production in Zichron Yaakov. The Baron sent experts of growing grapes to Zichron Yaakov, and until today, Zichron Yaakov and its surrounding growing grapes and have a few wineries, including Carmel Mizrahi, which was established by the Baron himself. And in this building, he brought Meir Dizengoff, which was a Jewish chemist. And he asked, before he was, later Meir Dizengoff became the mayor, the first mayor of Tel Aviv. But back then, he was an exceptional chemist that knew how to create different types of glass. And he was brought there to be the manager of this factory. And this is Meir Dizengoff here on the right and the Baron on the left. And the factory worked for 4 years until 1895. And in the end, they stopped it because they realized that the materials that they had on the local shores, the sand was not suitable, and they stopped the production of glass. Later, the building was used in different uses until its roof collapsed, and lately the roof was rebuilt, as you can see in the pictures, and now it is serving as a museum. In the museum, you can see many of the artifacts that were found in the excavation of Dor, of the Phoenician city of Dor. You can see the amphoras that were used to take wine in those hippos ships hundreds of years ago. You can see bottles of glass from different periods that the Phoenicians managed to make with the simplest equation of using soda, lime, and silica that is coming from the sand in order to create glass. The glass in the ancient days was not transparent because of the minerals that was inside. Today we know how to make transparent glass, but usually in ancient days the glass was stained. And later, after forming the first formation of the tool, they used to decorate it from the outside in different colors of glass. And these are little gods of the Phoenicians that were found also in Dor. You can see the faces that were hidden in It's all made of clay. And another decoration and gods of the Phoenicians. A ring from the Egyptian period, also in the same museum. And the most ancient mosaic that was found in Israel, also there, that was made with glass pieces. So in order to create this colorful mosaic, they used stones and also pieces of glass to make it the beauty it is. And here we are back on the top of the Tel of the city. You can see the edge of the palaces that are coming out of the rocks and the view to Kibbutz Nahsholim, Zichron Yaakov on the back, and Faradis on the left. And this area, from the top of the mountain, this is where the palaces used to be. And here is a depiction of how the archaeologists believe these palaces looked like, or temples. And here, what is left of them on the ground. So you can see the walls here on the right, and they go left because, as you remember, the sea was lower and farther away. And with the years, the sea got closer and higher, and it broke the foundations of the palaces. But here on the right, and of the temple, here on the right, some of the walls are left. And back to nature. So if you stand in this area, you can see this beautiful pied kingfisher, or as we call it in Hebrew, parpur akud. And like the kingfisher, the colorful red and blue kingfisher that we know, you can see this bird flying in the air, keeping one spot, exactly one spot, looking from above into the sea, and when it sees the fish, it dives in the water and catches a fish and brings it up. And these are the little turtles that we told about, the mother that is laying the eggs in the warm sand, and through the summer, the sun keeps their warmth and until they hatch and they walk on the sand. One thing that is important is that these turtles will go on their own into the water. Today we have a problem because when the turtles are laying the eggs on the beach and people are walking on the beach, they may step on the nest. And if you allow a vehicle to drive on the shore, which is completely forbidden in Israel, but still happening from time to time, then a car might drive on it. So the Nature Reserve Authority, every morning in the summer days, they go at dawn before the people come, and after the turtles go, the mother turtles go, and they look for the signs in the sand if they can find a nest. Once they find a nest, they dig it up, they take all the eggs and they bury them again, but in a place which is sheltered with a fence, so animals, including crows and jackals and foxes cannot reach them and cannot harm them, and people cannot step on them or drive on the nest. And after they hatch, they take the turtles and help them make their own way on the sand to the sea. This also happens at night. Why does it happen at night? So predators will not find them, like the crows or other birds. So they wait for night. And how do they know where is the sea? With the moonlight or the starlight, they can see the white crash of the waves. And they are attracted to the little white light of the waves. But today, with the modern lighting, they are getting confused, and instead of going into the sea, they sometimes go to the other side where the lights are on. And so this is another reason why they are being held until until the right night comes, and we make a corridor for them to walk on the sand. And why is it so important to walk on the sand? Because when they go on the sand, they smell it, and they go into the water, and they get all the information of the minerals of this very specific shore. And when they will be adults, they will return exactly to the same shore where they hatched. They remember it by by the smell of it and by the composition of the minerals, and they were born there. So it means that they can lay eggs there safely, probably. So they always come again and again to the same shore. Here you can see a little one that I found more than 15 years ago. And sorry. And 15 years ago, I took it up in my hand, and not knowing that it's completely not healthy for them. So if you see one of these, help it walk on its own to the sea and not lift it. Maybe it's time for questions after I fix.
We certainly have a lot of questions. Shahar, I think we'll actually take your slide deck off to improve the audio, and we'll bring up slides as we need them. First of all, people are as I am, amazed by how a relatively very small piece of geography has produced so much incredible layers of history and learning. And thanks for bringing that to us. Barbara says, this is a fabulous tour. And I want to echo that. Now, I think she may be biased because she got to tour with you in Israel in person as well. So we love it when we're able to make those connections happen. So first, point of clarification on the glass factory that you showed us that operated just for a few years. Is that actually a part of Kibbutz Nahsholim now? Is that on its grounds, or who runs that museum?
Yes, it's inside Nahsholim, and Nahsholim runs it together with the Antiquity Authority, that of course own all the antiquities that are found in the land of Israel. And you can visit it. It's a beautiful museum. It's better call them before to make sure that it's open, and especially if you come on a group, it's easier. But it's a really unique museum in Israel that is focused on this Phoenician period.
So we also learned from you today that the famous Mayor Dizengoff, who becomes the mayor of Tel Aviv, started out as a chemist and as a entrepreneur of sorts, but it sounds like he wasn't very successful on the converting his chemistry of the sand into a viable business. So what happened in that story in between the time he did the factory and then went on to become the Tel Aviv mayor?
So actually, I have a little blackout, and I don't remember exactly this part of his history. But actually, he was not the entrepreneur. He came to work for the Baron, and the Baron was the entrepreneur. And he was just an excellent chemist. And also, the story of their meeting is interesting, of where they met. But I have right now a little blackout with this cough. And maybe I can recall it.
That's okay. That's okay. No, that totally makes a lot of sense, knowing the effort to start the wine industry and the fact that the Rothschilds would have needed to at least explore what the different local sources for making glass would be at the time. There are a couple of questions that we had about the process by which the snails, the color is then taken to be used in various fabrics and in other textiles that you alluded to. Can you just give us a little bit of insight to that? And can you actually see those shells and snails today on the shore, or are they no longer visible?
Yes, you can. When you go on the shore, you can find them. There are not many. I say every time that I found one, it's like, hey, I found it. I never saw any of them alive, but apparently some people are going into the sea, and even on a small scale industrial level, it still exists until today, when they are being taken out of the sea in order to make it's a new how would they say it? It's a new business in Israel to create this color again, because the Israeli researchers, they learned and taught everybody what species you need for which color. And some people said, hey, okay, so scientists discovered the secret of the Phoenicians. Let's do it, because God commanded us to make the tzitzit with a blue thread. So they said, oh, so this is a product that Jewish people need in order to fulfill the commandments of God in this ancient method. And they go to the sea and they pick the snails, and probably in hundreds or thousands of them. You can, if you are a Hebrew speaker, you can find on. I found a guide of how to produce it. So, and this was not written by the scientists, but by the people who care about making the mitzvah. And they explain and they show exactly where to break it. You have to break it carefully and not to smash it, so you don't break the gland. You have to take the gland entirely outside. And when I see it, I don't know if they are endangered, but my first feeling is I hope these animals are abundant enough in the sea, so they will not finish them in order to make the divine blue, the biblical blue.
Well, thanks for sharing that. The colors are just popping out and beautiful, and really added such an interesting element. I don't know if the kibbutz members wear more purple than other kibbutznikim in other parts of Israel, but certainly that's part of their heritage. One quick question before we wrap here: who did the excavation at Tel Dor? Is there a specific archaeologist or historian who is associated with the particular expertise on the Phoenicians in that particular site, or was it multiple people?
So, of course, there are multiple people, and we can name Ardon Bar Chama is one of the leading of them. A good close friend of mine that used to be a tour guide, his name is Golan Shalvi, is also a researcher in the field, and is focused specifically on Phoenicians in his PhD work and his later works. And of course, you have Zohar Amar and Amma Sukenik, and there are quite many names in this field.
Well, we are
on the Israeli side of the field, because Phoenicians, as they.
So Shahar, thank you so much for taking us today to the purple and Chelet shores of HaBonim and Kibbutz Nahsholim. This was really rich for all of the senses, looking at the nature that is well worth going to visit on its own, looking at the different layers of the history and the Phoenicians, and teaching us a little bit of the alphabet via the Phoenician alphabet and the icons. That was such a, we could have spent the whole hour there, I think, just on the letters itself. For many folks, we are now entering a period in the coming days for those that celebrate in the United States, in territories of Thanksgiving, which is coming up. And of course, the AIFL team has found an interesting way to look at that for next Sunday's episode. We'll be looking at how Thanksgiving was originally celebrated by the very first Jewish community at the Portuguese synagogue in New York, arriving from Europe. And to make this reciprocal, we're actually going to be looking at how Israel is celebrated in a small but mighty little community in the Galilee, a little bit further north from Nahsholim, called Har Chalutz. It's a community that I'm very familiar with and very happy to share with some of the founders of that English-speaking community in the Galilee who will be joining us on Sunday. So guess what? You get to enjoy, for those of you celebrating Thanksgiving, you get to enjoy with your family, wherever you may be. And then you get a bonus. Come join us again on Sunday, the 27th, and we will look at these two different communities and how traditions of immigrants arriving to a new place are either continued or are assimilated into the practice that they have. We want to thank everybody for joining us today and wish everybody a happy parade, a happy Thanksgiving, a happy week ahead, whatever it may be, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you especially to Shahar for your expertise and guidance today.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Goodbye.